Hello, I'm coming to you tonight with some updates about the final paper. Thanks to more than half of you for completing the survey. It was very helpful for me. I want you to know that the surveys are anonymous. They don't show who responded how. So I will tell you that all but two people said, yes, let's make this change. Let's make the earlier parts worth 50 points, and then let's make the rest of the paper worth, I think it comes down to 250. And then the total is 400. One person said they needed to hear more about it. I suspect that might have been a math situation and needing me to demonstrate why that would work. The answer to that is that if you don't do that well on a 50-point assignment, that is a lot better than not doing well on a 125-point assignment. So if your grades were lower on part two, and I think you're going to find that your grades are relatively low on parts three and four, not to worry you too much, but what I'm seeing is a very common situation that I think you will be able to respond to and fix. Another person said, I want to know what my grade is on parts three and four before I make a decision. So, what I'm going to do, because I want to be fair to everybody, is if you don't, I'm changing everything to 50 points that you've turned in so far. And then I'm going to make the final project worth 250. If you look at the grades that you have and do the math and think it would be better for you to have the original setup, I just need to get an email from you stating that. And I will do individually what you want to do. Your two choices are the three previous parts can each be worth 50 points. The combined parts with significant revision can be worth 250 points. Or you can keep it the way it is. So the first part, 75. The second part, 100. Parts 3 and 4, 125. Combined, 100. So it's up to you. I will trust you to make your own decisions. I do want to right now get into revision. I have not finished all of parts 3 and 4. I'm moving through as fast as I can. Blackboard continues to not allow me to make marginal comments for the most part, so my comments have to stay in the comment box. I don't know if any of you have been having trouble with Blackboard, but it's very frustrating. In any case, I've tried to respond to your comments there. However, once I got through 5 or 6, I saw that basically I was giving the same advice to everybody. So I thought I'd go ahead and do this bit on revision so that you can start thinking about that early. I also want to tell you that technically these papers are due on the 12th. I have a week to grade the papers. That would be the 19th would be when they were due, and they might be due actually the 18th. For you folks that are graduating, they're probably going to want the grades in as soon as I can get them in. If you need an extension, I would be glad to give you a couple of days extension just on this project, not on anything else in class. So I could get these from you on Wednesday. That would give me time at the beginning of the week to grade my other classes and the end of week to grade yours. I need to have in writing when you're going to be turning in that paper so I can know when to expect it. I will be, except for tomorrow where I'm booked really tightly, I should have quite a bit of time Thursday, Friday, even Saturday and Sunday to meet with you over Zoom if you want to talk about revisions. Okay, one of the requirements for the final draft is that you're going to put all of these parts together to make one proposal. But the fine print, it's actually not that fine, is that it needs to undergo substantial revision. Putting parts together is not a process of just sticking them together. In addition, you've got comments from me about the parts, and I want you to make those changes. So that grade, that 250-point grade, is going to be based on primarily how these things fit together and how substantial your revisions are. Have you responded to the things that I've said? Okay, I want to take these from part 1 through parts 4. So part 1 is identify the problem. The thing I found myself saying most to all of you is that you should probably start your papers with your role in this issue. One of the easiest ways to establish exigency is to tell a story to your reader about yourself. Now, in some instances, you have something that happened specifically to you. Say, I have an uncle who died of prostate cancer, or I have mental health issues, I suffer from depression, whatever that story is. Others, you just have always really cared about animals and animal welfare, and you yourself have volunteered and have fostered, and it just pains you so much to see animals suffer. So, whatever that story is, tell us that story, then move into the research. Aristotle tells us that logic and rational argument are the thing that he most wants people to learn. But people don't change their minds without the pathos or the emotional trigger. And that trigger often comes from the personal. And it's the most ethical, I think, form of doing that. Now, in my example through this, I give the example of bladder cancer. And the reason I gave that example is because I was diagnosed with bladder cancer in 2012. So I have written a paper like this before, although it was 25 pages. And it was, published in a book. I'd be glad to provide you a copy of it if you're interested, but it's kind of a large version of this. So I would want to tell my story, and my story is this. I was diagnosed with a cancer that is very rare for women to be diagnosed with. In addition, scientists have studied this disease, bladder cancer, and they think that genetically it's different in men and in women. Interestingly, however, maybe not so interestingly, maybe sadly, African Americans are more likely to die from bladder cancer. Now, women are more likely to be diagnosed at a higher stage and have worse prognosis. Black men are more likely to be diagnosed at a higher stage and worse prognosis, and black women are in the worst situation of all. So one of the things that I found out is that if you have a UTI, most times your GP, and this is for women, they don't see that as remarkable. It's typical to find blood in your urine. What I found out is that my diagnosis was delayed by 18 months because I didn't know how important it was to have another test to see if blood had been eliminated from my urine. If it were still there after being treated for a UTI, then I should have gone to see a urologist. In fact, my doctor prescribed me antibiotics over the phone for a second UTI, when almost certainly I had bladder cancer at that point. So while scientists might say that it's genetically different, I also know that doctors are treating women and black men and black women differently. I also think it's very complex. So there's lots of cultural reasons that keep us from getting the care we need. Okay, so that establishes a need, and I can go on and on about this because I know way too much about it, but I need to cite my sources to show you the research and then tell you my story. Part 2, identify strengths and weaknesses of what is already being done. In my case, there is a fantastic organization called the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network. They are doing so much stuff. And I have been a part of the things that they're doing. I've been a part of the walk. I've helped to organize the walk. I've been to their educational trainings and so on. However, as the person who was writing on prostate cancer mentioned, a lot of this kind of advocacy doesn't reach particularly the Black community. And then also oftentimes women, because we are just not seen as prone to get this disease. So the strength, I think, is that we have a national organization that's very robust. The weakness, and it's not necessarily a huge weakness that Beacon needs to be, shamed for. It's just that there are some things that are not quite sufficient. And I think most importantly is the local level. One of the things I would very much like to do is organize a group to go and talk to general practitioners who are treating UTIs, to tell them my story and our story, because there are several women, and to say, look, after you treat us for a UTI and we go through the antibiotics, get another urine test to see if there's still blood. If there's still blood in the urine, we need to go to a urologist. So I could come up with that sort of situation for it. So the problem, incidence of bladder cancer, has been largely addressed in the following way. And I can explain that. So it's not that what's being done is bad or failed or whatever. I would want to use Beacon in my advocacy. I want to keep them and build out what they're doing. I think a lot of you felt the need to kind of say, nope, not good enough. I'm going to do this brand new thing from scratch. There are so many advocacy groups out there that you need to tap into to get an idea for what you personally could do about the situation. Okay, slide 4, parts 3 and 4. I have asked you to do a big picture, and then I want you to focus on a specific proposal. Now, that specific proposal needs to be made to a specific audience. That audience needs to be within your sphere of influence. Who are you able to reach? Who is able to hear you? Now, I think that most women who've had a UTI would be able to hear me, because I got cancer, and people are automatically, their ears are attuned to hearing a story about, oh, this person's had cancer. So they tend to listen to that story. It's got kind of a high value role. So I think that would mean that I could do, some sort of workshop at my GPs to help educate female patients about UTIs. Maybe I could make posters and distribute those at my GPs. My GP's great, so she might be very, open to that. I don't know what I could do, but I could build on Beacon. I would definitely want to bring Beacon to my GP because there's so much information that would appeal to doctors and that would also appeal to patients. So in parts 3 and 4, we need the kind of big picture thing. So some of you are proposing that legislation be changed. That's great, but no one is going to listen to you specifically to change legislation. What they might do, however, is at a local level, be encouraged to vote for legislation. Or you might be able, many of you are having topics that would be ideal for you to go into your high school that you graduated from and do a workshop with other college students with high school students. High school students love college students, and they would listen to you on many, many topics for that. So I want to know what you are going to do about this problem, which gets us back to the beginning of this is my story. And then at the end, this is how I am going to position myself in relation to that story. Okay, a few things about length and citations. Okay, you can read the details of that. But one of the things I want to point out, particularly in your research section, is that some of you are producing a lot or giving sentences with a lot of factual information, statistical and otherwise. I'd like you to consider the possibility of turning those numbers into a table or into a graph. In fact, your source material, your resources might already have those made. If you want to use them, just do a screenshot and then import it into your paper. Just cite it. It's fine to reuse a table. It's a lot easier to follow. So finally, I want you to know that whatever I've addressed in the earlier papers, you need to respond to in your final drafts. Let me go to the next slide. You'll need to compile the parts. There's going to be some repetition. Some of you have, in every paper, told me about the problem. I see why you did that, because rhetorically, it's really weird to just jump right in to a solution. But you obviously are not going to retell the problem 3 times. You're going to need to do that. Your grade on this paper is going to be based on how well you accomplish these original tasks that were evaluated in the first round of papers, and finally, how you're going to respond to revisions and the substance of that. You can see why it might be really beneficial for the 250-point paper to be the one, the final paper, because then you have all of my comments now to respond to the revision on and can just knock it out of the park. Because your proposals do not have to be something huge and big. It can be something that you yourself can contribute to. So I hope this helps. I'm available for conversations about revision. I'd be glad to do that. And I'm going to get these papers back to you as quickly as I can so that you will have time to revise. Thank you very much. I hope this helps. Bye-bye.